Oh, no. Right. I hope this is recording to the cloud and not to my computer. Okay, so anyway, welcome to another episode of Women Petpreneurs podcast with your host, Mary Oquendo. My guest today is Rachel Corbett. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
I actually love your wall of certificates.
Oh, thank you.
I think more groomers should be, highlighting this. You know what? Get those certificates. Let people see them. See lots
Absolutely.
of them. So, how did you get involved in the pet industry to start off with?
Well, so growing up, I was in 4-H and I always enjoyed it. And I used to groom my own sheep and show them. And it turns out grooming a sheep is really not that different from grooming a really dirty poodle. So later down the road, when I decided I wanted to get into animals, I did want to go into veterinary. And then I found grooming. And I got a job into grooming to start paying for college because I was paying on my own at a private school. And then it turns out I fell in love with grooming and stayed with it.
You know,
So,
that's a really nice point that you make about grooming to pay for your college. Because I had, when I worked Petco, I had a girl for work. I mean, she started working when she was 16 years old. And honestly, to this day, that girl, now woman, is the best hire I ever had. I'm so sorry that woman is working for Chevy now. But anyway, it's how she paid for college. Well,
hmm
everybody was killing themselves working like Home Depot or McDonald's for like chump change. She just come home on the weekends, spend a Saturday grooming, make more money in that Saturday than everybody else did. And the entire week they were working someplace else, and she had time to study.
yeah, I did both. I did college and I was grooming, and then also, or I was learning to groom at the time. And then also, I was actually a bouncer for a concert venue. So, and I did that for 7 years with grooming because it kind of stuck with me.
That's awesome. Okay. I have never had anyone on here who's a bouncer. So now I need to know more about this. You were a bouncer. What's the job description on that?
Um, well, so it was for a metal hardcore venue down in Massachusetts. And it's funny because like you get there and it's like a little tiny kind of hole in the wall type deal, but it's actually like one of the biggest places for the metal scene in New England. So there's a lot of big bands that do come to the small venue because they love it and they love the atmosphere. But basically my job was to make sure everyone was safe. A lot of time I was patting people down at the doors, making sure they weren't bringing in any contraband or any weapons. Inside, you walked around, you made sure people were not being over intoxicated. If they are, you want to speak with them, hydrate them, take away their wristband, which is usually what allowed them to drink. Basically, make sure people aren't fighting. If they are, get into it, figure out what's going on, pull them to the front doors. It was a lot. And for a little bit, I sold a little bit of beer at the snack bar here and there.
All
But
right. So do you have, okay, I'm not going to use the word fun story,
eh,
a memorable story from your days as a bouncer.
um, I mean, there are several times I took out dudes way bigger than me for fighting. I was punched in the face before a couple times. I've actually broke my nose the second time being punched in the face by a patron. Um, yeah.
Okay, we've all seen movies like with Jason Stratham, The Rock,
hmm
whatever, in which they are like bouncers, okay,
hmm
at a dive. Is that accurate?
A little bit. I mean, for the most part, the bouncers are really just average people that have learned to do the job. Like they'll in movies, they always have like big buff people and they have all this muscle, and you really don't need that type of muscle because the goal is to actually not put your hands on the person at all unless you absolutely have to. Really, your biggest, like, how do I say this? Like your biggest gift would be talking to people. So like my biggest thing is I had a really good way to talk to people. If I noticed they were over intoxicated, I'd go out, but I'd be like, hey, just checking in how you're doing. I noticed that you're not feeling that great. And then like as I'm talking to them, I'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna offer you this water, you look a little dehydrated. As I'm doing it, I'm taking off their wristband. So there's no confrontation because they don't notice what I'm doing because they're too busy conversating with me and I'm being really nice to them.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a huge like skill to have versus just being muscle and pushing people out and all of that.
Awesome. Wow. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Hey,
I miss it. I like it a lot.
I'm not sure that would have ever been in my like, oh, I've never been a bouncer. Even my younger days, I don't think that's kind of what I want to do. I had 3 teenage daughters. Let me tell you, there was enough of that nonsense going on, keeping 3 teenage girls in line. But
Yeah, I'm, you know, I do attribute a lot of my people talking skills to working there for so long. Because when I started, I was probably more like a timid person. But now, for like example, in my business, like if I have clients, they're going to be pushy with me. Like I don't take it at all. I don't have to. I know I don't have to. So I feel like that's kind of transitioned with me. Whereas I feel like when I started back in 2012 grooming, like I let clients push me over because I didn't really know. I just want to make people happy. Whereas at the end of the day, you got to do what's right.
I always attribute clients not walking all over me because I went into the grooming industry after my third teenage daughter. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I'm done. I am so done with this.
Hmm.
And so I went into corporate with working here is better than being with a teenage kid at home. Okay. And if I'm going to put up with her crap at home, I'm not putting up with your crap. All right.
Hmm.
This is my refuge.
Hmm.
So I attribute, that whole, and I watched other groomers working in the same shop have a problem with the same groomers. And I think, those knowing that I set clear boundaries with them is what made that job really enjoyable.
Hmm.
All right. So for you who are listening, set your boundaries. Okay. I guarantee
Definitely.
you, your life is going to be so much better when you when you have a backbone. It's there. I guarantee. I'm confident you have a backbone. Okay. Use it. All right. So, when did you then make the move into then going grooming full time?
Um, let's see. Full time would be, I think, around 2015, I think. It was a little private shop in Worcester, Mass. And I worked there for a while. I think it was like over a year. And that's where like I learned a lot. Those clients were definitely like I didn't think I was good when I started, but are any of us actually really that good
Oh,
when we
none of us.
start?
None of us
You know,
are.
I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, the feet on that dog. Like, you know, and I had a lot of amazing clients there, and including some I actually kind of still have contact with. So considering that was many years ago, it's kind of nice.
Well, yeah, I'm in contact with some of my original Petco clients too, because they follow me
Hmm.
on mobile. And I will say this. So back when I started, like around 1998, we didn't have cell phones to take pictures. We wanted pictures, they were like Polaroids, or we got the camera
Hmm.
out with the film. So there's not a lot of pictures from my early days of grooming. And for that, I'm kind of grateful. So those grooms that I was like so proud of, I'm like, I would be cringing today.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I've definitely seen some that I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I remember being so happy with this groom and like it was nice, prepped nice, but like totally unbalanced. Like
Yeah.
the feet were too long because I wasn't brushing them up and trimming them tight to the pad. Like it was all these things that I learned over the years. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm really glad I had confidence.
Yeah, a little bit of moxie goes a long way. This is a really good groom. You will like it and you will pay me. And that's the end of and I
Yeah.
expected to put two on top of it, And those are
Yeah.
great clients. I had a client tell me one time, and in all seriousness, she goes to me, she goes, Mayor, I've had better grooms. I would never imagine taking my dog someplace else. And her dog, her Shih Tzu was a 10 shave. So I was turning this dog into a pug. And I'm
Hmm.
like, your dog is naked. I'm not sure how much I'm not sure what to do here. Okay. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
there's no wiggle
I know,
room with the
I know there's
tender.
a compliment in there somewhere. Okay. I'll
Yeah.
have to dig around for it, but I know there's a compliment there. So yeah. And when I see newer groomers post photos, I'm like, that's, you know what? I think that's great. And I think that's terrible that some other groomers will tear them down because
I
you
agree.
obviously don't remember your first grooms, or maybe you're old like me and there's no photographic evidence of.
I was like, lucky you guys.
Yeah, I did not realize you were in Massachusetts. I'm originally,
I'm not anymore. I was.
all right. Because I was originally from New York, but moved to Connecticut.
I remember you had mobile in Connecticut.
Yes. You
Yeah,
know?
I was mobile at one point in Mass.
Oh my God, yes.
I
Okay.
had the big pink van.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was me.
That was you. Okay. Nice to put you were at the New England shows.
Yep, yep.
Okay. And so we're just gonna like go over to the New England show a little bit. So they moved it to Springfield.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I went this year for the first time to the Springfield location.
Yeah, I was intending to go this year, but then my daughter announced she was pregnant and she was due in between Groom Expo in New England. And so it was like,
Oh,
yeah,
congratulations.
yeah, he's a cutie pie. But
Hmm.
I couldn't commit,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I honestly, I like had it set up and then I had to like run in quick. I had to drop off some stuff at NEPGP and like grab what I needed and kind of go because I was supposed to go see family members and help them with something. And then those plans canceled and we actually ended up in the casino for a little bit, which was really fun.
okay. I'm hoping to go next year because I
Mhm.
really want to see the New England show while it is not at the host hotel in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it was very different. I will say it felt very different. It was almost like not in a bad way. Like I just like definitely had like some full nostalgic feel of like the host New England because that's my first ever expo was
Yeah,
at the host.
you know,
So
you can have all the fond feelings, and yes, it was a tiny show at the host, and I like small shows. Okay, but I will never fault Barkley for moving that show out of that hotel.
yeah, no, I don't, me neither. Yeah, I get it. You know, it was my first place I competed. It was like my first like everything. My first thing I took classes, so it was like sad to see it go, but I hope it goes in a better direction. I think these first couple years with them moving it away,
It's
people
gonna be
are kind of like not going, not attending, kind of taken back a little bit.
yeah, because
So I hope it grows.
it did take away that small town feel from the show, and that's what
Yeah.
happens when you move it. The Tacoma show here, the Northwest show here in Tacoma, is also a very, very small show. And it's growing. And so what happens if they move it literally to the convention center down the street?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, there's pros and cons to it. People complain that there's not a lot of vendors, and then it moves to a big show, a big space, and then, well, oh no, it's too commercial. I'm like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go.
I've heard all ends of it. And
Yeah,
also people don't realize too, if you're not going to attend it, the vendors are going to keep dropping out and they're not going to be doing the shows because they're not making money.
yeah,
Those shows are expensive for them to do.
yes, it is. And I think there's a miscommunication on who the clients are for the trade shows. Okay.
Hmm.
Clients are the vendors. It's the vendors that are paying for space
Hmm.
there. Okay. If they're not happy, they're not coming, there's no show
Hmm.
because attendance fees from speakers, okay, I mean, for attendees, that basically pays the speakers.
Hmm. Yeah, I agreed.
So just saying,
Takes a lot to put on a show.
it takes,
Even
oh,
just like when I was with NEPGP putting on Spring Fling, we used to do it at the Foxwoods. Like that was like we had to get everything together. You pay the speaker, you pay for the room, you pay for this and that. And people don't see that. They just see, oh, I'm paying $400 for an all weekend pass, and this is what I'm getting.
yeah. And I did the first aid class at one of the flings. Okay.
Hmm.
And it was really nice at the casino.
I loved it. It was
I,
so cool.
I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sorry, you guys
I
didn't do
think they got knocked out during COVID, so hopefully it comes back.
well, yeah. I mean, and that is an expensive venue. I mean, when
Oh
you're
yeah.
hosting it at like a casino, they're not giving away the rooms. I know we have a casino right down the street from me, and I did a writing workshop there, and it's not cheap.
No.
No, at
Anywhere now, any type of venue for anything isn't cheap anymore.
but at the flip side is a really nice space.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so you were working at a small shop, and then
Hmm.
oh, so you also competed too. Are you still
A
competing?
little bit. Um, Not currently. I want to get back into it. I had like a huge life change back in 2021. Like I lost my mom and then I had to move up to Vermont and it was a whole thing. I didn't groom for almost 2 years. Kind of. I had a couple, like a handful of clients in Mass that nobody wants to do because they're naughty. So I would do them, but that's about it.
All right,
So
you're in
currently
Vermont.
I'm not competing.
So you're in Vermont now?
I am. Yep. I'm in Upper Vermont.
We're in Vermont.
Groton?
Okay, because my parents had a cabin in Wells.
Okay, yep. I'm not exactly sure where Wells is, but I know the area.
It's a tiny, tiny little town. I believe Rutland, the capital, right?
Montpelier is our capital.
Okay, wherever Rutland is.
Rutland's way down southern,
Okay.
well, kind of southern Vermont area. It's
Oh,
like 2.5 hours from me down.
okay. So yeah, what is a rather long state.
Yeah, it is.
So they were in and around the biggest major town there was Rutland. Um, there was
Rutland is huge.
yeah, oh Rutland is huge.
Yeah, we're kind of not too far from our capital, Montpelier. So I'm maybe 30, 45 minutes from Montpelier.
Okay. All right. How do you like you're not, are you mobile grooming up there?
No, I don't think I could survive it up here, mobile groom. I can barely survive living here.
Oh my God.
Like, with the snow, it's a lot. People are like, oh, Vermont has like heavy winters, and like you think it looks just like Mass here, but it gets cold. Like even with heat in my house, my pipes froze twice last winter
Oh
because it
geez.
was so negative. Like it was insane.
All right. So I was in Danbury, Connecticut, okay, and mobile, and I would tell you, I wouldn't move a mile north from where I was in Connecticut. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of the reason why I'm out here on the Pacific side of Washington, because we don't get a lot of snow. There is nothing to make groomer hate the winter than being a mobile groomer with a
Yeah.
lot of snow.
My first year mobile, I can't even count the amount of water pumps I went through because they froze and cracked. And at least I'm handy, so I hand built my mobile. Like it was taken off from another groom, I built more into it. And I'll tell you what, I'm lucky I was handy because I think I went through like maybe 5 pumps because my van froze
Okay,
because I couldn't
so
figure out how to heat it well.
my first winter was the winter of 2002 to 2003, and this is like seared into my brain. Okay, that was the winter. It started snowing the middle of November, didn't stop to the middle of April. Okay,
Oh.
literally snowed every other day. Okay, and thankfully, I was new, so I wasn't, you know, full yet, but there was, and in Danbury, that whole area is everything's a hill and a curve.
Mm-hmm.
I was not sure there was going to be a year two as far as the mobile grooming. Fortunately,
Yep.
the winter following was actually a very mild winter because I'm pretty sure I had some PTSD starting that second winter.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely did. And like I figured it out. And then I remember one time I was away. I worked a convention. I worked security for some conventions too. And I was away working for an anime convention. And my landlord ran over my cord to my van with his snowblower and never noticed. So I got home and everything was frozen solid after 4 days. It's like, oh man. But I
yeah,
miss mobile. I did love it, but it's just not feasible here.
I had set up the cord. We had an electrician come in and put a cord on the outside of the house
Hmm.
and had set it up so that the cord wasn't laying on the ground. It was like up in the air. So my husband couldn't run it over because
Smart.
it was, yeah, we rigged it up so that it was close. All right.
Yeah, I
And
probably could have done that because he did put one outside, but I had to share the driveway at the time with my landlord, who's a friend of mine. And we had like 5 cars in that driveway with my mobile van. It was always like a really nice squeeze in to get it. So we just ran it down so people can run it over. But yeah, he chopped it up real good and never even noticed.
yeah. Oh God. Yeah, that's
And
yeah.
they're expensive cords too. They're not cheap.
No,
You have to
they
have
are
a
not.
decent one to do the heater and stuff. Like, oh man.
Yeah, I think those cords at the time I was still mobile grooming was like $100.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
At least $100. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're not $20 cords you get over at Home Depot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, fortunately, this area had a lot of lakes and a lot of boats, so got them at the marine supply store with not too much of a problem. But you're talking 100 and change for those cords.
Yep.
Yeah, all the things I don't miss. I don't
I
miss.
know. Even like the breaking down, like I love my van, but there's a lot more wrong with it than I knew about when I first bought it. So like the first month it was in the shop, or the first like, so okay, so I got the van and I was transferring out of corporate when I bought my van, and I was gonna get it ready. I'd already put in my notice and it was supposed to be done. Then my mechanic, well, the first place didn't want to take it. They're like, it's too much work. But we know someone who will do it, who was in the town I was living in. So I'm like, all right. He did it, and he's like, it's gonna be like at least a month. And I was like, a month? I'm like, I'm not gonna be working. So I reached out to our local groomers. I was like, this is my situation. I'm like, I am leaving corporate to go mobile. That's all been taken care of and done. I was like, but now I find out my mobile van might not be ready for a month, and then I have to build it because it's empty. I was like, so I'm looking at least another 2 to 3 months, maybe. I'm doing it myself. And I'm like, I'm not looking for like, a grooming job with your clients. I'm like a bather, whatever you guys can take me as. I just need a little bit of something in the meantime. And that's
Right.
actually how I met my best friend now. So
Okay.
she took me on in her salon and I worked for her. And I actually ended up working for her for a few years instead of going straight out mobile because I didn't have a lot of clients at first. So I
Okay.
worked part-time with her. I worked part-time at mobile, and then I still work part-time as a bouncer.
All right. Those are the whys. And my front door here has got, the glass of the dogs can look out so they could see
Yeah.
things. But what they can also see is the cars driving past on the road, which is a good 200 feet away, by the way. But
Oh, wow.
that's a problem for them. But that's always Mickey. But anyway, okay. So you eventually then went mobile full time.
Yep. Well, it was for a couple years. And like, I wish the van didn't have as many problems as it did, because in the end, I needed an engine replacement. And at the time I was in my life, I decided to step away from it and not replace the engine. So, because the body was never going to pass inspection on top of it, I basically needed a whole new van. And in the 2 years I was mobile, I hadn't made enough to upgrade yet.
Okay. Yeah, that's hard.
Mhm.
So I had two mobile grooming vans, and now I retired, I was about 57, but I wasn't ready to retire when I got the second one, but I had to make
Mhm.
a decision. Okay. Because my first van was already now like 15 years old. Okay.
I
And
think I remember your first van.
yeah, and it was a great vehicle, but it needed work. It kept breaking down on me, and I was at the stage where I just couldn't be bothered anymore. So I either had to get a new van or retire then and there, because those were
Mhm.
my two options. So I sold the van, and as far as I know, that thing is still on the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I sold it pretty cheap. Somebody just starting out, knowing, detailing all the problems with it. Okay. And then I got a new van, which I sold, I think had it for about 3 years, 4 years, maybe 216. Yeah, about
I
four.
looked at your van when you were selling it.
Oh, you
I
did?
thought about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Oh my God, it was gorgeous. Uh, I thought maybe I might keep it, but you know what? I didn't want to drive it across the country. Let's somebody else. And the person who bought it went mobile for like a year and a half, decided it wasn't what they wanted to do, and then sold the van.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hmm. I feel like if I had had a van like that starting out, I would have stayed mobile. I still miss it. I do.
Hey, you know what? No, I sometimes in the back of my brain, it's like, yeah, I kind of miss it. And then the smart part of my brain goes, what are you, stupid? Oh, you're not going to go back to grooming. Just do what you're doing. You're fine.
Hmm.
So, actually, on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Are you tired of putting off your emergency and disaster planning manual? Look no further. This 67-page fillable template will make the process a breeze. Simply fill in the blanks for your business and gain access to checklists for supplies, common hazards, debriefing, evacuation and shelter in place protocols, resources, recovery, maintenance, as well as best intake practices. It's time to take action and be prepared. Get your copy today at positiveed.com/books.
Okay. And which will sort of like bring us into, all right. So, Rachel very generously offered to work on the website for the Pet Stylist Relief Fund, for which, Rachel, I am eternally grateful because it ended up on my plate to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't like Squarespace. There's a reason I moved my website from Squarespace, and here I am back doing it. And when you offered, I was like, Denise was like, I don't want, no, she doesn't want to step on your toes. I'm like, step on my toes, step on my toes, shove me, elbow me out of the way. I'm fine with that. So thank you very
Yeah.
much. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
it's a lot. You already have a lot on your plate. And like I'm only grooming kind of part-time now. So, any way I can help is awesome.
So thank you for that. We
Of
appreciate
course.
But you had a reason why this was kind of important for you to help with this particular organization. So,
Yeah. So I live in an area that has apparently not flooded really before. And in July of 2023, before I could even open my salon, we flooded really drastically, like bad. Um, I lost most of our pasture fences, and mainly our farm was what was like damaged. And I had to like move some things around. Like we had to evacuate our animals and get them, away from the area. And they were probably gone for about a week. We'd have to go somewhere like 3 times a day to go see them. But so they're telling us it's a like kind of once in a century thing, the flooding, and that it's not going to happen. And then exactly 1 year later, on the same exact day, we flooded again and even worse.
I
So
remember the photos from that. You don't
yeah,
expect towns like in Vermont and think places up in the mountains, and which has happened in Nashville, North Carolina, to see mountain towns flooded. And not just flooded. I mean,
like bad. Like it's something I've never
yes.
like I never even imagined like where we are. Like I have the beautiful river out back, and that was part of my draw to this property was that it was like an old school farmhouse. Like it had an old barn and it had a beautiful river going through the back acre. And I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. And now I'm like kind of second my guessing myself buying this property because of the river. Because so much comes from upstream when these disasters happen that it completely floods. It actually took out our road. You couldn't leave town. We kept going and we tried to get like you could get to like a little bit of Peacham, a little bit of Barnet, but you couldn't get past that. We got circled around because so many roads were washed out.
Yep.
And in Groton, just on 302 where I live, there was like within maybe 2 miles, even if that, both roads were out, the main road.
Yep.
So you couldn't even leave.
So, and the problem with flooding is that once it starts, you have a problem.
It's so fast.
It is fast. Once flooding starts, it's fast. All
It's
right.
so fast.
So
Like
you,
we were kind of prepared knowing it was coming, and we still almost lost the goat to drowning
yeah,
because as we're pulling everybody out, we actually just threw my goats into my house. I had nowhere to put them because so last year I was able to get them on a trailer and get them away. Whereas probably because of last year, there were more paths for the water to come this year, and our house was completely surrounded, so we couldn't even leave. So like the roads were already deep where our cars would partially go under, so we couldn't evacuate anybody. So we just started throwing animals in our house. We had nothing else to do.
So when it's time to evacuate, you might think, I mean, Kate and I were discussing this the other day. I mean, you could be ready to leave your house in like 10 minutes time, and that's great. You should be ready to leave in 10 minutes time, but can you actually get out of the evacuation area?
And that's something I didn't plan for this year.
Yeah.
And 'cause I had an evacuation plan, what we were gonna do, put them together on the trail like we did last year, get them uphill. But our plan they really never had what happens if we can't leave.
Yeah.
Because I didn't expect to not be able to leave.
Yeah. So, and that could be a huge thing. So I had plans, so Fun in the Sun got canceled because of Hurricane Milton, but I had planned well in advance a vacation around that. You know, I had not been to Disney and Universal Studios in a really, really long time. So I dragged my husband with me because he doesn't go to trade shows with me anymore. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to be there for a day and then you could do whatever you want. So I made him come with me, and then we were going to go see my daughter in Atlanta. But those plans changed. But the way the airlines, I couldn't change the flight because it wasn't a problem yet, right? So we flew into Orlando and we left the following morning. So we landed on Monday, we left Tuesday morning. Still a good amount of time before it hit, all right? Let me tell you about the traffic. Do not think you get out of town very quickly, right? Especially when you're not familiar with the area and you don't know any side roads. You and like 1 million other people are trying to leave. Now, we couldn't even stop for a pee break because you couldn't even pull into the rest stops. They were just packed. We didn't stop to pee until we were well out of the evacuation area, so we could actually park at a rest stop and run into the bathroom and forget about gas. So
oh my gosh, yeah.
For us, it was getting in the car and going. We were good. But the amount of hours it took us to get out of the area. And so I think that's an element of people's evacuation plans that they don't necessarily account for. I'm here in Squim, okay? There's only one road in and one road out, basically. And that road is on the waterfront, okay?
Yep, that's basically our road.
Yep, it's along the waterfront. If we have a tsunami, it's going to take out that road. We're going nowhere.
Oh. Yeah, our 302 basically runs along what's called Wells River.
Yep.
And it grew so much, it took out roads, like it was crazy. Our house ended up like an island, like up to our front step. So I have garden beds. We basically had to pick 4 vehicles that we wanted to save. We drove them up onto the garden beds, put the trucks in the front because they're taller. We had 2 vehicles flood out, and those are gone. You know, it's come so fast, and like I said, we didn't know we couldn't leave.
Yeah.
So that's definitely now going to be added to an evacuation plan again. We hope it doesn't happen again, but now with 2 years in a row, we have to prepare ourselves.
So the Pet Stylist Relief Fund, we used to have the Groomers Emergency Assistance Fund many years ago.
I remember.
That folded. And so Denise Hero wanted to get it started again. So I credit her with, getting the ball rolling on that again. And we are a 501(c), so we are a legitimate so anybody who wants to help, send me a message. We will find a way for you to help. Okay. And if you're impacted by a disaster, now this is kind of what we're clear on this. What we're covering, you have to be a professional pet groomer. Okay. Can't be some owner with a bunch of tools and calling themselves a groomer. That's not a groomer. You need to be a professional pet groomer. And all applications are vetted. All right. So your money is going to professional pet groomers. Okay. And it has to be what is considered an emergency and disaster by FEMA standards. Not that it's declared, but it has to fall under the guidelines of what FEMA considers a disaster. So here we are. Okay, moving along. So, where do you see yourself in, say, oh, I don't know, 5 years?
Well, with the flooding, that is kind of hard to look at. Because we've discussed if there's chances of it flooding again next year, that we may sell the house and move, which I really don't want to do because I just built now what is my dream salon to me, right on the property. I can walk, a couple 100 feet to work every morning, which is nice. It's small, it's private. It's basically like a shed that we built the inside of, as you can see. My boyfriend works carpentry and stuff, and we built it. I don't really want to leave the area, but I'm hoping if, the flooding doesn't happen, I can continue to stay here and establish my business some more. Open to more full-time grooming. I got to get in a car accident last year that affected me physically. So along with the flooding and doing the farm stuff, I chose not to open like gung-ho and get a ton of clients in the beginning. I only groom like a few dogs a week right now.
Okay.
So 5 years from now, hopefully I'm full time. I hopefully have my IPG masters. I'm working on it right now. And yeah, I think that's really it. Just be happy and healthy with clients. My farm be recovered. It's a huge, huge loss. This year we lost the gardens and everything. So I hope to reestablish everything.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if you had words of wisdom for anybody, what would they be?
I think my business words of wisdom is charge your worth,
Okay.
because I've been in a situation where I didn't, and you're working, you're doing a ton of dogs to make what you need to make to live, and then your body is hurting, and 12 years later, where I'm at, like, you really hurt. You really do. And
Well,
I got lucky enough that when I was mobile, like, I really established with clients, like, this is how much I'm charging because this is what I need. And I am probably the highest priced person here. Someone told me I'm double than the groomer next town over, but
good.
my clients are happy, and that's all that matters to me.
All right. And here's the thing. I mean, I know that's a phrase, and I kind of liken that phrase to the term puppy cut. It's not really
Mm.
defined. Okay.
Yeah,
So what charging your worth means doesn't necessarily mean that you're twice what somebody else is.
yeah,
You don't
exactly.
know what your worth is until you sit down with a business plan and
Mm-hmm.
know what it takes to actually operate your business. All right.
Yep.
What are your expenses with it? What is your salary? And more importantly, the things that always seem to be getting forgotten on this, your retirement fund, your vacation fund, and education fund, all of these need to be factored into so that you can charge your worth.
Exactly. And people don't look at that. It's like for this, like I have to go through like what's my overhead, breaking it down. I am one-on-one only, like, or one family at a time, so they could bring a couple dogs if they wanted. But that alone right there cuts me out of doing like 10 dogs a day.
Yeah.
I can only take about 5. So it makes sense why I'm double than the other groomer, because I'm only doing half the volume.
Yeah. It's a different business model. You have to decide
Exactly.
what you want to do. And being at the lower end of the price spectrum means you're doing way more dogs, right? Or way more cats or whatever it is you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something, you're also probably doing the price shoppers.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a toll on your body. And it is part of the reason I wanted to retire when I did, because I didn't want to be in my 60s, 70s, and 80s, maybe longer, okay, with a broken down body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So charge your worth, but know what your worth is. Know what your business model, what the worth of your business model is.
Exactly. Like I said, I set mine up so at the end of the day, like, I'm happy, my clients are happy, the dogs are happy, and that's what matters to me.
That's all that matters. And your pricing has no bearing on what somebody else charges, because your business model is going to be different. Your expenses are going to be different. Your time is different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So though it's business, any personal words of wisdom?
I mean, it kind of like goes in the career, like, find what makes you happy. And like, I have now been grooming for 12 years, and I don't think I ever saw myself doing a career where I was happy to go to work every day. You know, we all have those days, but we're not. And I've been there. And a lot of times it came with the people around you and the way you feel that you don't want to go to work every day. But at the end of the day, grooming dogs, like I love it. And I'm glad that I decided not to finish college. And I was actually going to be an accountant and an interior designer. Um, so that's interesting. I left that. So the business side of things I did well on because I knew business. But, you know, I think do what makes you happy. I love what I do.
So one fellow college dropout to another, doing what you're happy. So on that note, Rachel, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And everybody join us next week. Well, actually not next week, in 2 weeks, when we interview somebody else making a difference in the pet industry.